Hello and welcome everyone to the show. I'm JJ Flazanes, your host. Thank you for downloading today's episode. We're going to talk about living regret-free today with Dr. Gail Carson. She is one spunky old broad, and that is actually the name of her brand. She's a little spitfire, and I adore her, and it was a pleasure to meet her, to have worked with her at multiple new media summits, and then, of course, to have her on the show to impart her wisdom onto us. She is in her 80s. She's about like 5 foot, maybe less. Actually, she's probably less. And she is in her mid 80s, I think. She's definitely in her 80s, and she is not slowing down for anything. And, you know, the idea of living regret-free also has a lot to do with our ability to receive. And I wanted to make sure you all knew that I am doing a webinar. It is free. It's in September 5th. It's a Thursday at 5:30 p.m. Pacific time, 8:30 p.m. Eastern time. It is free. And if you attend it live, you actually get some bonuses. You get some audios, you get a free copy of both of my latest books, and the value of the bonuses alone are over $50. And so that is worth showing up live. If you're interested in checking it out, it will have a certain capacity based on whatever platform I use for the webinar, but currently we're right at the beginning of announcing it to people. It was originally going to be a live event locally, and I've opened it up to be a webinar because a lot of you don't live anywhere near me, and you're not going to come on a Sunday or a Saturday for a 3-hour workshop. You want to get this information now in the comfort of your own home. So to register, you're going to go to jjflazanes.com/manifesting, manifesting, manifesting, jjflazanes.com/manifesting. And that will give you more details about the free live webinar. And again, it is live, and it is encouraged that you show up live. And that way you can get questions answered, we can interact, and it's going to be, again, a presentation and an event that will help living regret-free. It'll help all aspects of your life. So today's show, Living Regret-Free. As president of the Carson Research Center, she served as a consultant to 50 industries on 6 continents, advising them on current business trends and cutting-edge opportunities to stay ahead of their competition. The author of 5 books, she's hit the Amazon bestsellers list, was a winner of the Bestseller Quill Award, and was inducted into the National Academy of Best-Selling Authors. Selected as a 2007 Legend of the Speaking Profession, she hosted Entrepreneurs Women in Business radio show, wrote for them, and had articles in More magazine. Currently, she hosts over a dozen radio shows per month and is the founder of the SOBRadionetwork.com. She is also the only woman in the world who has a doctorate, a CSP, Certified Speaking Professional, CMC, Certified Management Consultant, and an FIMC, Fellow to the Institute of Management Consultants. Welcome to the show, Dr. Gail.
Thanks for having me, JJ. I really appreciate being here.
Well, let's see. I don't know a lot of women who are working and out there in the media and writing books and having radio shows in the age group that you thrive in right now. And so it was like you're such a inspiration that I really wanted to bring you on the show so that people just didn't have this idea, this ageism about, you know, younger is better and younger is when we get things done and how long do I have? And we all have this scarcity mindset, I think, around age and around what's possible. And I know that you've got several radio shows, one of which, Living Regret-Free, will be on with you. And I wanted to talk about that from your perspective. But before we get into how people who are listening can really take the tips that you've learned through your life experience and live regret-free, let's go over your story. So first I want to ask, what did you do when you were in your 30s and your 20s? What path were you on? Have you always been on the same path you're on right now?
Well, I've always been on an entrepreneurial path. So in my 20s and 30s, I owned modeling schools and court reporting schools, real estate schools, fashion merchandising schools. I had a SAG and after talent agency, and I had a convention service company that we provided theme parties and tours and industrial shows and that kind of thing for the conventions that came to South Florida. So I had 7 offices. I had 350 people. And yeah, I did that for about 21 years.
Have you always been entrepreneurial, or how did you figure out that you wanted to work for yourself?
Well, I knew I would never be able to work for anybody else because I knew I could never do anything that I thought was stupid that somebody told me to do. So I actually started working at 13. I had broken 22 pair of glasses, and my father informed me that if I broke another pair, I was going to have to pay for them. And I picked up my 22nd pair of glasses and brought them down to my dad, who was waiting in the car by the curb, and promptly sat on them. I put them on the seat of the car and sat on them. And he said, "Young lady, you know." And I said, "I know." And of course, it was the 50s, and the only thing available was babysitting, which I hated. And so I said, "Can I get a real job?" And he said, "Well, if anybody will hire you." So I went through the newspaper, which was, that's how you got jobs then. And I became an Avon lady, JJ, and I became the top salesperson in our whole area because I loved it. I loved going door to door. People were home. I sat down on their couches, and once I sat down, I wouldn't get up until they bought. And yeah, that's my first one. And then I just created jobs at 15 and 16 and 17. I went off to college and then started a whole other career, modeling and um, just a whole bunch of stuff.
You were an Avon lady at 13.
At 13, of course, remember, it was the 50s and things were different. They didn't have the laws they have now. As long as you could buy their little black box and do the thing, you were an Avon lady, and that's what I did.
That's amazing. What did your parents think of you since they were the top seller?
They really didn't know what to do with me. My sister was very different. She's 5 years older and was very much of an indoor person because she had a lot of allergies. And back then, the only way you could control them was with shots every day. So she never really went outside, and I was the tomboy. And they just they kind of gave me free reign. I mean, my mom was disciplined with me. I mean, I couldn't get away with everything, but she just kind of let me be a free spirit. And so every job after that, and I had 3 or 4 of them after that, that I created because I wanted to get the experience in each field, um, they were pretty good. I mean, I went to college and I was very unhappy my first year, and I wanted to leave after the first semester. And my mom said, "No, you have to stay a year and then you can go wherever you want to go." And she was very tough with me because I had interviewed for I was a dancer, and so my dancing partner and I tried out for a show, and they asked if we would split up, and I said no. Well, he said no because he didn't want to split up, and I said yes because I thought they wanted me, but they wanted him because there were no male dancers back then, and so I didn't get the part, and he did, and I was really upset. And I called my mother crying, and she said, "Grow up." She said, "This is not the big time. This is college. You've got to stick it out. If you can't take it there, you'll never take it in the real world." So she was tough on me, but she also gave me a lot of space.
Gail, is your birthday in December?
No, February. As a matter of fact, I'm on the cusp, so I'm a very confused person because I'm on the cusp of both Pisces and Aquarius. And for years, I thought I was Aquarius. And it's only in the last 20 years that I found out I was Pisces because they used to say through the 19th, you were Aquarius. Then they changed it to the 18th. So I'm really not sure who I am, but no.
Are you the
February,
19th? Are you on the 19th? Are you the 19th?
19th of February.
That is my mother.
You're
And
kidding.
nope, and you are a Pisces for sure. And you couldn't be more different though, the two of you. So I would love to do your chart because there has to be Sag in you. You have too much, not that my mother doesn't have a lot of energy, she does, but it sounds like your energy comes from a different place, and like it was innate in you. And the entrepreneurial spirit is something that when you're that young, you don't learn that. It's within you. It's something you already incarnate as. And so I'm fascinated. Oh, wow, I didn't realize you were Pisces. I thought for sure you definitely have fire all in you somewhere in your chart, because you are a very, very fiery person, which I love because of course I'm full of fire, but I am also a Pisces as well. So I want to. You're just such a fascinating person. I love that we got to meet at New Media Summit several times, and that you're just being that beacon of light in the world again. Someone who is continuing to have the passion and the drive that you do. If you had to say what you think drives you, what is it?
I don't know. I've just really always had it in me. I always have loved to work. The only thing I ever wanted to do was work. I didn't want to go to college because I wanted to work, and but it was the only way I could really get out of my hometown. So I went to college, but I got out as soon as I could. Moved 5 days after finishing school. I got out early, but 5 days later I had moved to Miami, and just started right away. I mean, I gave myself 2 weeks to make it, and if I didn't make it in 2 weeks, I was moving to LA because those were the only two warm places I knew, and got the job I wanted. And 8 months later, owned the company. So, and I was 21. So I don't know. I've just always had it in me. I always created, dances in the backyard and through the water, the sprinkler system, and practiced in my house singing and dancing and playing the piano and all of that. So I don't know. I've just always had it in me.
So when we talk about living regret free and we talk about the path that you've gone down and the women that you coach, I know that you also specialize in coaching women over 50. How, can you relate to people who have regrets or people that don't, because you have had it in you most of your life? So what about the people who are not, who haven't had that? How do you relate to, or how do you deal with someone who is the complete opposite of you?
Well, I relate, but I don't coddle. And I don't, I just don't believe in feeling sorry for yourself. And so I know that there are women, when I've given speeches, I was in one, I was at a particular event. I was doing a customer service. Uh, he was providing customer service for his clients. It was a physician, and so I was the person speaking to them. And one woman was talking about, her mother this and her mother that and her mother this. And I said, well, is your mother still with you? No. And how long has she been gone? 30 years. I said, you mean to tell me that your mother passed away 30 years ago and she's still telling you what to do? And everybody go, oh, in the room. And she said, yes. I said, well, and then I went ahead and I gave her what I thought was my constructive advice. But I mean, I do empathize. I understand what people go through. I understand that there's difficulties, but I don't coddle because you're not going to get anywhere if you coddle. So uh, people either like me and want to coach with me, or they don't, because I'm not for everybody.
Oh, I know. I'm not for everybody either. I'm the same. I'm very much the same, and I'm totally okay with that. So let's talk about how you work with women. Is it just women, or is it anyone over 50?
Well, it's women over 50. However, I mean, for years I consulted to businesses and big businesses, so there are still men that I work with, But in terms of my real passion, it's women 50 plus.
Let's take some of the research that you've done throughout the years with not only your own businesses and the companies that you've consulted for and the people that you've coached. And let's take a look at, if we did a broad stroke overview of some of the things that get in people's way. What would you say would might be a few items, few mindset pieces, or a few belief systems or habits or patterns that people carry with them that really stop them from living the life that they want to?
I think a lot of people are concerned with what other people think. So that's number one. People try to conform, which is why I did not work for other people, because I think that if you've got a boss or a CEO or whomever, then there's certain rules that you have to follow. And those rules don't always make sense. But you're afraid of losing your job. I mean, I have to tell you something, JJ. Probably was, and I'm not exaggerating here, I probably was 30, 35 years old before I found out that people had paid vacations, that people, when they went to conferences, their companies paid for them, that there were all these benefits, because I never had those. So I didn't know they existed. And so, I mean, I was just amazed that people would stay in a job because they were afraid of not having money. Well, I never had money. I mean, I figured if something worked, great, and if it didn't, it didn't. And I tried things and I did things and I went into business because I loved what I was doing, but not because I wanted to make money. That was the real confrontation for me, was to realize that there are people who stay in jobs because, and I understand if you're a single mom and you've got kids and you don't know, where your next dime is coming from, you're held hostage, and I understand that. But for me and for the majority of people who I work with, that's not the reason. They're there simply because they're afraid to do anything else.
So how do we move people from these circumstances that create maybe feeling a false sense of security, or the idea that they can't do something else? How do we move them into living a regret-free life? And for you, well, what do you think the definition of that is for you? I mean, obviously it's pretty straightforward. You live regret-free, but I mean, is it regret-free in every way? Is it regret-free in terms of emotions or relationships or things haven't done? Like, do you have that checklist, the bucket list of things you want to travel the world? Like, what does that mean to you?
Well, I mean, I've never really had a checklist or a bucket list. I've just always done what I wanted to do. And when I was through with it, I was ready to move on to something else. But I think, I mean, everybody has roadblocks, everybody has obstacles. I always used to say, if I don't have at least 12 crises in a day, it hasn't been a full day. So you've always got stuff that's happening, but it's how you deal with that stuff. And so especially, running 7 offices, you can imagine all those people, but it was what I loved doing. And so I just, it was just part of who I was. And I don't think that a lot of people are willing to go there. And so for me, living regret free means I go to bed happy, I get up in the morning happy, that I'm really proud of what I've done all day, that I feel I've made a difference. I feel I've contributed to my profession and contributed to the people who I deal with. And so to me, all of that is living regret free. And I mean, I don't know if you are aware, but I will certainly tell your audience, I'm going right now through my 4th case of breast cancer. I've been through radiation 3 times, chemo, 16 surgeries. Now I'm going through hormone therapy, and but nobody knows it because I'm always happy. I'm always smiling. I'm not falling apart at the seams. I work out every day. So I mean, I was up at 6 this morning and had an appointment at 8, and I had a meeting at from 9 until 12. And then I had 2 meetings this afternoon and had to catch up on the email. And I'm speaking with you now. And I'm up tomorrow morning at 6 again because I'm leaving. I've got 10 trips between now and the end of October. So it's how you look at life, and it's how you deal with all the things that come into your life. I've lost a husband. I had a very happy, wonderful marriage for 45 years. I've lost a son. I mean, there's a lot of, let me say, crap that I've been through, but you have to deal with it. That's called life. You can't escape life. And so it's how you deal with all of these things that makes a difference on how you come out the other end.
Okay, and so let's give some tips on how you deal. What would you tell people on how to process or deal with? Like, exactly what do you do versus, I mean, because we can make the argument some people don't deal with things, but they ignore them. And when you ignore them, they don't get necessarily better. Or we could make the argument that people allow these things to stop them from living, and that of course then becomes them not living. So where's the balance?
Well, again, everybody has a different, well, we say stress reducers. People have different things. I work out. That's a very big stress reducer for me. It's important for me. I like it. As a former dancer, it's to me dancing, but I'm working out instead. I'm limited now because of all my surgeries of what I can do, but I do what I do every single day. And then I have my pets. I don't know how I'd survive without my pets, even though they drive you crazy at times, but they're very meaningful to me. I mean, I have a great family who also goes through stuff. I'm a great grandmother, And and then I love what I do, and I do all the things that people tell you not to do. I love to watch television. um, at night I watch during, at night, because that's what kind of relaxes me and puts me to sleep. And I do a lot of reading. I'm very active in community organizations, and I mentor. I have a mastermind group for not for profits. I have Habitat for Humanity and Girl Scouts and people like that. And I just, so for me, how I deal with those things is being active in all of those things. And that's besides what I do for business. I mean, those are the things that stimulate me. Now, for somebody else, it might be some other kind of physical activity. It might be swimming or hiking or something like that. It could be that they want to volunteer for something at a hospital or for a charity. It could be that they have friends that they like to get together with. It could be belonging to a book club or something like that. But I think the more active you are, and I'm not saying busy just to be busy, but active with things you like, that's what allows you to live regret free. You have to love what you do, and not do it out of obligation, but do it because that's what you want to do.
I would agree with that. I would agree that definitely how we structure our lives based on the freedoms that we feel, right? So, like you said, you went into business and you loved to work, not necessarily because you were trying to make money to survive, but because you liked the things that you were doing. And too often, I think that we have ideas about what we should do. That word is such a violent word, that we should do. That means we have to put our dreams, our passions, our desires, our wishes, our talents, things that we don't think logically fit into the picture of our lives to the side in order to accomplish whatever the goal is, whether it be to pay the bills or to support yourself. Or and so I would agree with you in that finding whatever it is that you are passionate about to do. And it sounds like your love language is acts of service. I don't know if you know what your love language is, but between all your groups and your masterminds and your charity work and your community work, it sounds like you feel good when you're out there making a difference in giving. What do you think about that?
Well, I totally agree with you. I mean, some of it is selfish because they're professional groups. Some are professional groups. And so I become well known in that particular arena. But I'm also, believe it or not, starting a business with another octogenarian. And we're doing something called Primetime Generation, where we're doing videos and calls and articles and so forth for the over 50 crowd, both male and female. And I call us the Dolly Sisters because I don't know if anybody remembers June Haver and Betty Grable. They made a movie called The Dolly Sisters, and she's also blonde and bubbly and small, and I said we're the Dolly Sisters. And she's as excited as I am and has as much energy as I do. So if you are good at what you do and you love what you do, then there's a market for it. And I think the most important thing is that a lot of women my age were not given the opportunity or didn't know they had the opportunity to be something other than a homemaker or a teacher or someone like that. And not that being a homemaker or a teacher was not valuable, but I mean, I taught. I had schools. They were my schools, but they were schools. And as I say, I was married. I did never wanted to get married, but I met the guy that I did marry, and it was a wonderful 45 years. So I think it's that many of them, at least talking to them, the three issues that have come up the most frequently is number one, their health. They're always concerned about their health, but some of them want that magic pill. And I was just named a finalist. I was one of the 10 finalists for the Silver Sneakers Fitness Award. I didn't win, but out of 200 people, they picked me, 10 and 9 others. And so now I'm going to be doing some lectures for them on the secrets to living regret free. And so, the health is number one. Number two is financial. I find that the women want to live in the custom to the life that they've had, no matter what that is, high, low, medium. They just want to know they're taken care of. And then the last one is community. They're looking for a community to do something with it, whether it's going to lunch, to the movies, to the theater, on a trip. I'm going to Greece in a couple of weeks, and I'm going by myself. And my son is sending me as a belated birthday gift. And he said, well, you don't mind going alone? Because eventually I was supposed to go with the three of them, but it was too expensive. So I'm going by myself. I said, I go everywhere by myself and I'll be just fine. So, but there are people that won't do that. So, those are the three things that women talk to me about the most: health, finances, and community.
And to venture down any of those, one of the things we talked about that I mentioned in your bio in the beginning that we haven't talked about yet is your tagline, your mission statement, if you will, spunky old broad, SOB. And you named yourself that, which you definitely are. And I'm sure everyone would not be surprised at all that they heard that, thinking about what that means to somebody. It's really a way of looking at life. It's a way of a mindset. It's a belief system. You're in your 80s and starting another business. I know most of the people that I know in their 80s are just lucky to, they're retired and, they're happy that they're not on the major decline if they're still with us. So it really does become a different kind of mindset. And I know you help other people with that and offer something called the Mindset Matters. Is that what the free gift is?
Yes, it is. It's having the right mindset, because without the right mindset, you're just not going to get where you want to go. So definitely, yes, that's a free gift I'm offering.
And that is SOB, Spunky Old Broad, mindset.com, SOB, mindset.com. But let's talk about mindset for a minute. Let's talk about how over the course of your life, because as you mentioned, you are on your 4th round of breast cancer and you've had you lost your husband and you lost a son. And so obviously there have been times where you've had to test your own strength and mindset, if you will. Have you learned along the way? Has it been something like, we know you've had energy and charisma and wanted to be an entrepreneur and wanted to get out there from the beginning, but, life teaches us things. And so what would be some of the lessons through some of the hardships or some of the transitions? I'll just say transitions, because like you said, life is life. And it's really about how we deal with it and what we think about it and how we process that and what we make it mean. And then what it means about us, how we either personalize it or don't personalize it. And so if you had to give some tips or some ideas about some of the ways you've learned, like things that you've learned over the course of your life that maybe you didn't start out thinking, but then, life happened and you had to figure it out. And this is now what the conclusion that you have. What kind of wisdom in your 80s would you tell yourself back in your 20s or 30s?
Well, that book, Don't Sweat the Small Stuff, it's really don't sweat the small stuff. And everything is small stuff, really. Unless it's some huge financial crisis or something like that. But I do think that what you need to ask yourself is, what is it that gives me joy? What is it that gives me happiness? What is it that makes me laugh? And those are the things that I think if you look at those things, it'll give you an arrow as to what you want to do. So if you look at if especially, you say at this age, and especially if we're talking about, women over 50, what is on your bucket list? What is it that you want to do that you've never done? What is it that looks attractive to you? The interesting thing is, I'm sure people have said this to you, JJ. They say it to me all the time. Oh, I just want to follow you around. Pack me in your suitcase. And I say, no, you don't want to do that. You'd be exhausted, because most people couldn't take my pace. So it's not really that they want to be me. It seems like they do. So I suggest to anybody who is looking at something to do, maybe shadow somebody, tag along with somebody, even at your age, do some interning to find out if that's really what it is you want. If you like to travel, no, there are going to be times that you don't get where you want to go, because there are floods and storms and rain and snow and hurricanes and all kinds of things. And you might be, in a place 2-3 days that you didn't want to be, but that's called travel. And so maybe he's thinking, oh, wow, wouldn't it be great to be able to do a radio show and interview people? Well, and not everybody is a pleasure to interview, and not everybody shows up on time, and not everybody remembers to send you things. And so, I mean, I think it's really important when you decide, hey, this is something that I think I'd like to do, try it out first, any way you can, whether it's volunteering or shadowing or interning or whatever way, to find out if it's really something that you want to do, because most things look different when you're in the middle of them.
Agreed. They look different. And then when you get to the other side of it, there's all the interpretation about what do you do with that and what lessons do you learn? I'm a big fan of making things, I believe we all create our own reality. So when something happens, you're not a victim to it. You decide that you've been a part of creating it. So what is the lesson for you? What do you do with it? Versus letting it be something where you say it's going to take me down, or, oh, poor woe is me. And I'm not saying that we shouldn't feel sad or have, go through processes, because that's part of life, and emotional processing is part of health. But at the same time, not telling a story that creates a victim mentality that keeps us stuck in thinking that life is not for us, but life is against us somehow. And so I think that that's definitely a way to go to, try things out and to put yourself in a position where you're learning and experiencing, because you don't know what you don't know, and you don't know until you try it. So why not just do it? So I think that's great advice.
Well, I have a very successful friend, and she said a really important sentence to me. She said, no is a complete sentence. So you can say no to something even though you feel obligated to do it. If you say no, it's a complete sentence. You don't have to do everything that people ask you to do.
Well, I would say of all the generations, your generation and people among my mother's, who's a little younger than you, I find that there's a lot of people pleasing. I mean, not that it's not in my generation too, but it seems like there's this people pleasing where that's definitely a great piece of advice for them, because they grew up thinking, I mean, even a conversation with my mother recently here when she was helping us move, I think it was about my dad. And she said, well, he'd get upset. And I said, so so let him get upset. You're giving him a choice. You're giving him an ultimatum. You're saying, look, give me a date when we can get this done. And if it can't, I'm going to hire somebody. And if he gets upset, he gets upset. Like, why are you you're upset. Why are you trying to avoid him getting upset when you've been upset for years about stuff not getting done? So it was one of those, like, what's going on? But I know I see it in women, like, and I feel like it's the older women in their 50s, 60s, especially 60s, 70s, and 80s, really wanting to make sure that they're not pissing people off, that they're very concerned that people like them. And even though most of it's fake, because you're saying something to one person trying to keep the peace, but it's not really how you feel. It's really out of integrity half the time. But I find that it's very cultural. Do you not find that?
Well, that's true. I mean, my mom was all about family. However, she did not. She did not. If she didn't like you, you knew it. I mean, she could give you a stare that would cut you in half. But as far as her family or friends were concerned, she would have given you anything and everything. But it's interesting what you said about your mom, because when if of course I never wanted to hurt my husband, but I agree with what you told your mom. If it was something like, this needs to get done, if you can't do it, we need to hire somebody, that makes sense. But I wouldn't go out of my way. If I knew something was going to hurt my husband, I wasn't going to hurt him in that way. If I knew that if I wanted to go somewhere, and he never objected to me traveling, and I was on the road a lot when I was speaking full time, which what I did after I sold my first business. I was on the road 50 weeks a year. I did 135 programs a year. I spoke in 50 countries and 49 states. So I was gone all the time. And he never ever said no. he said, I know when you're coming home. I know you're coming home to me, and that's the important thing. And I checked with the kids, before I did this, and they said to me, Mom, you're never home anyway, so you'll just be in a different place. That's all. But the thing is, I would never intentionally like say, well, I want to go on vacation to so and so when I'm never home anyway. I wouldn't do that to him. But on the other hand, if it was something that I knew was right for me to do, I would do it. But I can't say that we really had that many disagreements about things, because he did his thing and I never told him what to do. I did my thing, and then we came together and we had a ball, so it was interesting. He was much more of a kid person than I was. He was always ready with the kids and ready to take care of them and ready to do whatever. And I was the kind of disciplinarian. I was the one that went to the school meetings and with the teachers and made sure they had braces on their teeth and things like that, things that he didn't even think about. So it was a good blend.
I can see that in you, in the disciplinarian, or in the I'm the get down to business. What do I need to do? What do I need to do to get it done? Let's get it done. Totally.
Right.
So where can people find more of you? I know that you've got several books and several radio shows and your coaching program and your free SOBmindset.com that they can download and get a hold of or watch. So tell us, though, how people can find you for free, how people can work with you. What do you got for people?
Well, if they go to my website, which is spunkyoldbroad.com, very simple, spunkyoldbroad.com, they can find all of my resources there, how to contact me, how to, and I respond to everybody. So if they have something that they want to talk to me about, if they want to see whether or not we're a fit, if they want to see or take one of the programs that I have listed on the website, it's all there for them.
Great. All right. Tell us a little bit more about your radio shows too and your podcasts.
Well, I do 3 different genres. I do the Living Regret-Free that you mentioned already, and that's where I interview both men and women who can show us how to live a happier, better life. I have Women in Business, which is for women who are owning their own business or are senior managers. And then I have SOB Radio, which is for women 50 plus. And then I have the SOBradionetwork.com, which I have women who are over 50 doing shows for women over 50. And I have about 15, 20 women on that who are doing shows for other women. So that's what I do. So they can find those on my website again, or they can find them on radio. Well, there's a lot of different places. We're all over the places you can imagine. But yeah, we have about 500,000 listeners. And so I'm very pleased with that.
SpunkyOldBroad.com. If you want to get Dr. Gail's free gift, you can go to SOBmindset.com and get access to the Mindset Matters and Positive Thinking and her free video from her Mindset Matters program. And then definitely check her out. I'm going to be on her show. You can download her podcasts and go to our website and look around and see what else might speak to you. For nothing else, if nothing else, we're talking about, really, like, I wanted to title this episode today, Living Regret-Free, because too often, we don't know how often, we don't know what time frame we have on this earth. And like you said, thank you for sharing that, Dr. Gail, that I'm sorry that you're going through breast cancer for a 4th time, but the fact that you are, and that you're sharing it, and that you're sharing that how you're dealing with it, and how you're sort of not letting it stop you. And I think that the reason why it isn't stopping you is because you are so passionate. You do have a mission. You do have something that drives you. And I think when we don't have that underneath our energetic and our, the way that we feel about ourselves in the world, that it's more easy to be taken down by something else. And this, it's almost as if you keep attracting it to say, come on, punch me again. I'm going to get right back up. Like you're in the boxing ring right now. And you're like, yeah, bring it on. Cause then I'm going to come right back up. It's almost like I'm going to prove to you that you're not taking me down. And I'm going to continue to inspire women and men and anyone who thinks that because you age means anything. It obviously means nothing, because here you are still starting businesses in your 80s and excited and passionate about doing that. So I appreciate that you're on the show today. And I hope that everyone who's listening is inspired and will check out your website and your free gift, sobmindset.com and spunkyoldbra.com. Dr. Gail, thank you for being here.
And thank you for having me, JJ.